I guess we're live. Didn't do any of the intro, though. That's what happens when Zach's not here. Well, welcome to the show, everybody. This is the beginning. Yeah, yes.
Got me eating.
Thanks for joining us. This is another episode of the Red and Gold Standard podcast. My name is Matt Llewellyn, obviously filling in for Zach, as you can see by our lack of introduction. I'm joined by a special guest, a man who needs no introduction, but's going to get one anyway. A man who's been hustling, grinding, going about his day, learning how to cook, taking care of himself. The man, the myth, the legend himself, Anthony Two Plates Perry. How you doing, brother?
Matt, thank you for having me on, man. I'm really excited. Man, people are going off in that chat. They're waiting for that Matt rant.
I know. I'm kind of trying to figure out what it's about. So if somebody in the chat wants to clue me in, I can get mad about something real quick. It doesn't take much. So if you want to let me know. Until that time comes, I just want to say it was a bittersweet victory. The 49ers win 33-17 over the Miami Dolphins Sunday. And you know, it's another season, another quarterback injury. Jimmy Garoppolo breaks his foot. He will be out for the season. What's your take on that, man?
You know, I want to say I'm not surprised because we've seen Jimmy Garoppolo's he's injury prone. That's the bottom line. It's funny because it's like, you have like Jimmy, for example, who kind of ran into the ACL, right? Then in 2020, he kind of had that weird calf/ankle type thing going on. And like, okay. And then it's like, it makes you wonder, are these guys injury prone or do they have bad luck? Or is it just they keep putting themselves in bad positions? And we saw that with Jimmy's ACL. That was really unfortunate, but you got to get out of bounds sooner, cut sooner, do what you have to do. The calf thing, same thing. I mean, Jimmy just didn't handle that appropriately also. And then now you got the foot. I mean, it is really unfortunate at the end of the day. I hate losing Jim. We'll definitely get more into it about the show with the quarterback situation, but no matter who is in at quarterback from this point forward, the playoffs just got immensely harder. No matter, you can be as optimistic as you want about Purdy, or God forbid if the Niners somehow bring in Baker, however you view that, it doesn't matter. This path just got a ton harder. Even if we've had our complaints about Jimmy, he did what he was supposed to do, and he was doing it all season. And I mean, a regression is bound to happen at the quarterback spot because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where when Trey Lance went down, that really hurt. We were excited to see Trey Lance, but there was always that, well, Jimmy Garoppolo is a known quantity. At least he's gotten us to the playoffs. We know that at least we're going to win some games with Jimmy Garoppolo. This one was more deflating. And, Twitter notwithstanding, and I'll get to them later because they stand down, fellas. Brock Purdy came in. He had a good game, but the road looks infinitely tougher to go down with Brock Purdy than it did with Jimmy Garoppolo. And, I know that the optimistic of everybody is like, Brock Purdy, he can do it, man. This team isn't this and that. And I'm just, I get real Nick Mullen vibes from Brock Purdy and the fact that he's going to play well early. And then when teams get a little bit of tape on him, they're going to figure it out. There's a reason why this kid was Mr. Irrelevant. There's a reason why he was 262. There was a reason why he was the third string quarterback. And it's one thing to beat out Nate Sudfeld to get a spot behind a Trey Lance and a Jimmy Garoppolo. It's another thing to take the reins of a now 8-4 team that leads their division, that has playoff aspirations, has Super Bowl aspirations, really, and ask a rookie 7th round pick to lead this team into the playoffs and beyond. And I think it's a tough ask of anybody. It would be a tough ask of Trey Lance. There was some speculation that perhaps that he could come back at some point, maybe for the playoffs. It looked like he closed the door during his press conference, but Tim Kawakami later quoted him. And it seemed like there's just a little sliver of maybe in there. But I think it's unrealistic to expect Brock Purdy to always play like he did yesterday. And to have a guy that can come out with poise and get you a win when it's not expected is great. But when the other team's prepping for you, when the other team looks at you rather than looking at Jimmy Garoppolo and then having to adjust on the fly, what is that going to look like going forward? I mean, to me, it seems like it could be a situation where Brock Purdy is going to be in for a difficult time.
And I mean, to further that point also, I feel like the last couple weeks, the Saints matchup was pretty brutal in terms of offensive line play. We saw no run game support at all. And then Jimmy Garoppolo was just getting pounded against the Saints. We saw that, and it was really bad. And even while Garoppolo was in versus out, when Purdy came in, the offensive line was still kind of struggling. We saw the interior once again kind of start to falter a little bit. And I mean, I always get the feeling that Shanahan in the spot on the moment can call the necessary plays. We see that. And you talked about in our WhatsApp chat, but now you give Tampa Bay a week. I don't know what's happening tonight, but you give Tampa Bay a week to prepare for Brock Purdy, which essentially you're preparing for Nick Mullins 2.0. Let's be honest. You're asking for a lot. And I mean, we saw Miami in this game send the house a ton. Purdy hit some throws that he had to. Don't get me wrong. He made some nice throws. But at the same time, when you're kind of just letting it sling, you'll run into those every once in a while. But now you give Purdy the chance with, oh shit, now he's got first team reps. Now he's got time to prepare for the offense. But can he take it in? Can he really process that entire thing going on? If Shanahan's going out there giving him vanilla and he can execute that, good. But now that you give him the entire offense and playbook, it changes everything entirely. It changes everything. And now you just got to ask, can Purdy go and execute for these plays that Shanahan specifically wants? That's going to be the big question that we need to see moving forward. And as you get into crunch time in the latter half of this season, you're getting a lot of other NFC teams who are just hungry for playoff spots also. Seattle's right on our ass. They're playing well. Tampa Bay is going to be right there also. You can't downplay these teams as a whole. So I don't want to overstate Purdy by any means. He did well, but there's a lot of big factors that go into operating this offense, and Jimmy was doing it well. Now you got to ask, Purdy's got the time to learn it. Can he really digest it and take it in and get the support around him also?
Yeah. And it's not that I don't think Purdy's a smart guy. It's not that I don't think he's going to be prepared. I know Big Papa says I'm Eeyore. That's fine, man. I'm a realist. That's what it is. If you want to, smoke your own vapors on this win and think that that's going to carry us forward, that's all you, bro. 8-4, that's a great place to be. Quarterback situation, however, is not. I look at it in a realistic way where I saw a lot of things out of Brock Purdy that you kind of like. He stood in there. He hung tough. I also saw him spin right into a sack. I also saw them waste 4 timeouts because he was unable to get the play in on time. I also saw a lot of these things. I saw an interception that was pretty ugly, where you had a guy wide open underneath and you throw what could generously be called a very short back shoulder overhead, throw it up for Ayuk sort of thing. Not a good throw. I see not a good amount of zip. This is not a guy with a plus arm. This is not a guy that's going to beat you with his arm. They're going to have to run a lot of screen game. They're going to have to run a lot of, weird formations. I saw a lot of weird formations coming out during the game where it would be, it'd be Debo and McCaffrey in the backfield. They'd motion use check to the backfield. So it looks like there was 3 for a second. And then McCaffrey would go out to the strong side and line up behind the tight end and they'd run stuff from there. Just a lot of, little things, but the fans are high on the win right now. They're high because Brock Purdy played well, but these will be the same fans that'll be like, oh, he's a bum. We should go get Cam Newton the minute that this dude struggles. Right. I would expect them to perhaps, go and pick up, you mentioned earlier, Baker Mayfield. He did ask for his release. He was granted and put on waivers by the Carolina Panthers. 49ers are 24th in the order. We'll see if they can, kind of pick him up, but it's a lot to ask, even for a Baker Mayfield to come in and try to learn a playbook. So it's going to be a tough road forward. The schedule the rest of the way really breaks well for the 49ers. I'm not impressed with Tampa. Washington is competitive, but imminently beatable with Taylor Heineke as a quarterback. The toughest game left on the schedule for me is immediately after Tampa when we go on the road to Seattle. So
and that's a short week also. That's going to be a short week.
Yep, on a short week. So there are there are opportunities for the 49ers to win the division still, to get into the playoffs. But once you get into the playoffs and every team is a good team, how are they going to stack up, against the Philadelphias, against even Dallas, who, I guess the rumor out there is that they're imminently close to signing Odell Beckham. So what are they going to do with those teams with Brock Purdy as the quarterback? They have a ton of weapons. And if you can kind of, keep the game plan simple for him, he might be able to do something. But, that remains to be seen. And we've seen this story time and time again, where your backup quarterback looks good for a little bit, gives you hope, and then the wheels kind of start falling off. Perry, what do you think? How do you see this going forward?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think Seattle is the toughest team left. And it's not even that Seattle is so much tough as it is the Niners are just coming off a short week, period. And that's not easy at all. I mean, you're going to go into Seattle right after a home game. You got to fly out. Now you got to get the team to prepare quickly. So the schedule does break well for them. Someone in the chat said Tampa's getting their ass kicked. And I mean, they're losing 16-3. So Brady's pretty washed. So Tampa Bay is kind of spiraling.
I actually don't know if it's Brady that's washed. I think his team is just bad.
Yeah, he's not getting much support. And then plus his offensive line, half of them are injured too. He still has all the players, but you know how that breaks for the Niners. I mean, they'll have all the injury luck from the other team and lose by 10. But no, to the point, the Niners get a huge break. Really, if I had to order anything, it's Seattle, Washington, and then Tampa Bay in terms of toughest teams left. Boy, what a better time to have the Niners defense be as elite as it is, huh? I was very impressed with D'Amico Ryans' adjustments. Really, the only 2 touchdowns that were allowed were essentially off of busts. We saw Talanoa Hufanga came down. He defended the wrong guy on the big Tyreek Hill post that Charvarius Ward he can't catch up to. And then the same thing on the very first touchdown. We saw missed tackles and guys overshoot their routes. Rich Madrid on Twitter pointed out on the first touchdown that Hufanga came down on the wrong receiver, essentially, and took a terrible angle twice.
Right.
He's going to make those mistakes. But the fact that the Niners defense was able to adjust, the second half streak is broken, but the third quarter streak is still alive. There's still a third quarter scoring streak. So, no, to the point, though, it's the Niners get a huge break that their schedule is kind of softening up. Their defense is elite. And it puts Brock Purdy in the right shoes. And you know what? I mean, if he's going out there throwing a touchdown and a pick and winning games and keep, essentially game managing, that's great for the regular season. When you face the Dallases, when you face the Phillies, and God forbid, even if they play Minnesota, who I'm not that impressed by, but anytime they can light it up, you never know. Now you got to ask Brock Purdy to drive up the field 80 yards in the fourth quarter, down by 3, or to tie it at 7. I don't care who the skill makers are. At the end of the day, the quarterback position matters the most. And can Purdy do that? Well, obviously, we haven't seen enough. But if you have a guy who can barely loft Ayuk the ball, 15 to 20 yards downfield that gets picked, it doesn't give me too much confidence that he can really methodically move the ball downfield and just move to begin with. We know Kyle Shanahan is always going to try and dial up something over the middle or something intermediate to begin with, or a check down for Purdy. But when you hit the playoffs, or when you hit teams that make those adjustments also, and you take those away, now you have to make Purdy throw the ball, like we heard with Garoppolo specifically, which he was finally doing. It's almost 2019 all over again. And I'm not trying to compare Garoppolo and Purdy. I'm talking about what teams adjust to in terms of the arm talent. And that might just be exactly what we see moving forward.
Yeah, and I actually, I want to go back to Hung Fat. He asked, what plays did I see that showcase the difference between Jimmy and Brock? Since I've seen a lot of people say there wasn't much of a difference at all. And I don't think there was much of a difference. It was a lot of the similar stuff, a lot of over the middle stuff, a lot of near the line of scrimmage type stuff. But if I'm being completely honest, Jimmy Garoppolo has more zip on the ball than Purdy does. Purdy is very much Nick Mullins, noodle armed. I would say that, he's accurate, and he definitely threw some tight window throws. That's for sure. He definitely had some level of, gumption to be able to throw those. But yeah, it's one of those things where we'll see, and Niner Sickness is asking, if Brock Purdy plays well against Tampa Bay and they beat Seattle in Seattle, will I have a different thought about him? I could. That remains to be seen. Again, I've seen this. It's tale as old as time. We've seen it before where the backup comes in, looks good. The Dolphins weren't preparing for Brock Purdy. They were prepared for Jimmy Garoppolo. And so when Brock Purdy has to come in, there is a little bit of unknown there. And you can say, well, there's a talent drop off. It shouldn't be that bad. But Kyle Shanahan also adjusted what the plays were that he was running. So with tape out there now on Brock Purdy, I think that Tampa Bay makes a little bit of an adjustment. We'll see how Brock Purdy plays. After Tampa Bay, I think Seattle makes another adjustment because there's going to be even more tape. So this is a situation where I think once he gets a couple games under his belt, teams have a chance to look at his tendencies, and tendencies are important. As we see with Jimmy Garoppolo, who we see his heat map is up the middle and at the line of scrimmage, right? If you can take away those things from him, he's not going to be very effective. Teams know this based off of his tendencies. So once the book is being written on Brock Purdy, it remains to be seen what adjustments that he can make. So we'll see. And then one more question before we get into kind of the meat and potatoes of the game itself. Based on my expertise as a medical professional, what are the chances of Trey Lance coming back next month? I would say like 1%. Not because he won't be injured, because I think he's pretty close to being done with the injury. It's a broken bone. He had surgery, but all the soft tissue stuff should be healed. The bone should be, well on its way to being nice and firm now. But then it's a matter of building confidence, getting back into football shape, and does the team really want to take that risk with him? And I am leaning towards that they're not going to. So if I had to say, I would say it's not very likely. Now, Perry, what is equally as unlikely, and I got to shout this out because, gang, we have been talking about this for 2 years. 2 years now. My man, Nick Bosa, 3 sacks and a forced fumble. It finally happened, everybody. That guy was a man alive out there, as was the rest of the defense. 2 plays I saw where the defense really gave up the ghost. And kind of Talanoa Hufanga kind of gave up the ghost, right? He took that angle against Sherfield that was bad, and then inexplicably was just like, I don't need to cover over the top against Tyreek Hill streaking down there. That's fine. I'll go up and bite on the shorter route. Beyond those 2 plays, though, the defense was everywhere. I mean, Jimmy Ward getting vertical actually really horizontal for an interception. You have Fred Warner getting an interception. You have the tipped interception to Diamador Lenore. You have the strip fumble and recovery by, I believe, Dre Greenlaw scored the touchdown on that. Nick Bosa forced it loose. I mean, 4 turnovers forced by the 49ers defense on the day. Perry, if the 49ers are going to go anywhere, this unit is going to be the one to carry them. What was your impression of the defense on Sunday?
After the first touchdown scored, we were all like, oh, shit, right? And typical. And then we see D'Amico Ryans make those adjustments, and we see Talanoa Hufanga kind of blow the coverage, which we've seen him do that more or less all season. Not consistently, luckily, but he tightens it up after he cleans us up. And I really liked seeing D'Amico Ryans coach him up instantly. So, okay, we got someone like Tyreek Hill. Let's fix that. And you just see them shut it down. The whole story was the Dolphins are the number 1 offense. The Dolphins are the number 1 scoring offense. The Dolphins. The Dolphins have the highest fourth quarter scoring.
You should call them the Dolphins because they had no fucking D against us yesterday.
There's no D on the battle. Really though, it gives me so much confidence because coming into this game, I told Zach, I was like, in our pregame show, I was like, this is the type of game I wouldn't be surprised if one of these guys goes off and on the Dolphins, and busts off, 100 plus yards and a touchdown. And we saw it from Tyreek Hill, whose longest catch was 45 yards. You take that away, there's 8 catches for 100, which is about what you can ask for. It's not like he really blew it up entirely. So you look at that and you see like they lose Jimmy G. Oh shit, Brock Purdy's in. And it's just something clicked in those guys where they just played like men inspired, even more so than we've seen all season. And then your guy, Nick Bosa, lights it up with 3 sacks and essentially ices the game with the strip sack too. The shrug. Now he leads the league with 14.5 sacks. The guy is just lining himself up for the defensive player of the year. And it's just everything on defense is clicking entirely. And coming in with Deshaun Gibson being the primary free safety, it's like, oh no, Jimmy Ward has to move down to the slot now. We lost Mosley. Oh, Verrett's down now too. The adjustment has been so much better than I thought. And it's these guys who you wouldn't really think be role playing that well. I forgot where I saw on Twitter from Coach Yak, but he said Diamador Lenore, I think in 7 or 8 coverage snaps, only allowed a catch. So it's, Lenore is coming through when it matters most. That's what matters. He's making huge strides in terms of just overall ability. And we know Charvarius Ward can lock it down on his side too. The front 7 is just getting after it as a whole. And I'm sorry for your wife, man, but the Niners defense absolutely shut the shit down on Tua. He, after that first TUD, it seemed like that when the pressure was getting at Tua, he just crumbled. It absolutely crumbled. And he missed a lot of throws because of pressure too. So now you carry that energy into the Tampa Bay game, beat up offensive line. Washington, I'm not scared of Taylor Heineke. And then Seattle, Arizona, Las Vegas, it's just a defense playing inspired, man. I mean, I thought 2019 was insane. We all did. But with the guys they have in now, I mean, you go from D4 to Drake Jackson. You have all these guys executing, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to see from the defense. They've been outstanding. 49ers throwback. My wife was mad that her Dolphins lost, particularly because we had bets on the game that I won, both of them. So pretty sweet. David Yang, super chat, $5. Bosa's starting to wreck games like the elites. When the team needs a play to be made, Bosa almost always makes a huge play, defensive player of the year. I would argue that he's been making plays and wrecking them like the elites for at least, 2 years in a row now. This is his second. I thought his rookie year, he did really good. Obviously, his second year, he went down with the ACL in week 2. Last year, really stepped it up, and it was almost insulting that he didn't get any votes for defensive player of the year and didn't win comeback player of the year. This year, he looks like he took that personally, and he's been a wrecking crew. And it doesn't matter if Eric Armstead was out, if Javon Kinlaw was out. Now we may be without Hassan Ridgeway. We've lost a bunch of this guy, that guy, this guy, that guy lining up next to him.
Yeah, the confirmed report is 6 to 8 weeks for Ridgeway.
Yeah, so he'll miss at least the rest of the regular season. But it doesn't matter who has been playing next to him. Bosa has just been going off. And I don't know if you saw, it was really interesting to me. They switched the side that Nick Bosa was rushing from on Sunday, and they did it because Tua is a left-handed quarterback, and Bosa likes to, rush on that one side to be able to get strip sacks just like he did. So kudos to Bosa for being versatile enough to swap sides when he needs to. Apparently he likes rushing the quarterback's blind side. So good for him. And, just an all around great effort by everybody there. And you just love to see it, man. Just this defense, like you said, 2019 was something. This is on an entirely different level, I feel like. And like you said, 3-quarter streak still alive, right? Everything's looking good. 4 turnovers. I mean, this defense more than any has been such a ball hawking defense, more than we've had in a long time. So shout outs to them for that. Hung Fat says, Perry, you and Zach were saying the Niners can live with Hill and Waddle going off as long as it's in between the 20s. And they absolutely did that. Although I will say Waddle coming up lame with that leg injury was very big for the team. One thing I also want to give credit to is Deebo Samuel. And we'll talk about what was said after the game because I think it's important to touch on a couple of former 49ers coming up just a little bit short after talking a bunch ahead. Deebo Samuel played his ass off, and there were multiple times where it looked like he was going to get stopped and he would make something happen. There was one play where if he got past the last guy, would have been a highlight play, and it was the one on the reverse toss where 4 guys were bearing down on him, and he ducked under and scored it out the other side and turned what would have been a 12-yard loss into like a 4-yard loss, but it was like the greatest 4-yard loss you'd ever seen in your life. What do you think of Deebo Samuel and how he played?
Boy, he played inspired. I mean, we've kind of been hard on him all season long, and rightfully so. It's hard to come off of the season he had prior, which was an absolutely incredible season. But even if he's not putting up those historic numbers, you're still expecting those numbers along that line. I mean, regression is natural from something that good, but it feels like that drop-off just kind of tanked immensely. And then even if Deebo didn't quite put up those numbers once again, we still saw that energy and effort yesterday. And it was just like, this is the Deebo we've kind of been waiting for all season long. And I mean, he had that big loss, or not the big loss, the loss that could have been worse. And you're like, dude, like this guy's dogging him out. And he had the big catch over the middle from Purdy that was contested. Beautiful catch. I know he's been kind of struggling at the wide receiver position, in my opinion. We've seen him kind of.
And by the way, credit to Purdy too, because he put that shit right on his hands.
Oh, it was a beautiful shot. That throw and the throw he had to CMC in the end zone that he dropped, the first one, was like, well, that was a beautiful throw. But no, just to see Deebo execute, it's like finally the role-playing pieces are starting to come together entirely. It was nice to see Purdy utilize Kittle more. It was nice to see Juszczyk used in the end zone also. We see Debo getting looks. Ayuk, I think, is going to kind of take a step back because his overall usage in terms of how Shanahan uses him a lot, especially over the middle past 15 yards, where he just eats. I think that'll take a big hit. But with a quarterback like Purdy, this is exactly what his offense, Shanahan's offense, is meant for when it comes to these short and these 0 to 5 yard plays where you have Debo, where you have Kittle, where you have CMC be able to just break open, miss a couple tackles, and then you're gone for 10 plus yards. I think that fits Purdy's skill set perfectly. Ayuk might take a step back, but man, you finally have a quarterback, I mean, debatably, who can utilize Debo to what his skill set matches to. I still think in our group chat, we've been really critical about those screenplays because they're so predictable. They're absolutely so freaking predictable. But hopefully we can see a little more creation and design in the offense with Purdy now to really open up those screenplays some more. And I would like to see that start with Debo. I think now is the time to really get him going. He wasn't playing like the hamstring was bothering him at all, which is a really good sign considering that, his weight fluctuates, and we kind of joke about that. But if he can just stay healthy and he kind of becomes a new number one option in the offense like he was last year, it's going to be a big turnaround, and I think it'll make Purdy's life a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just looking it up. I think Kyle Juszczyk got a season high 4 touches in this game. He had 3 catches for 12 yards and then a carry. I mean, again, anytime you can utilize, and I think one of the things was, George Kittle on that third down. Very clutch catch, very good read by Purdy before the play. Cover 0, getting the ball out quick. I think that you're spot on. Ayuk might take a little step back, but I actually think some of those guys that play up the middle are going to get a little, more play. I would expect to see Ayuk kind of transitioned into the screen game a little more. They're going to keep things close to the line of scrimmage. They're going to try to get the ball out of his hand quick, take advantage. It's this team is in a good spot minus the quarterback position. With that being said, Freddie Gonzalez sends a super chat. Thank you very much. He asks, "Are we still Super Bowl contenders, Perry? What do you think, just based off the top of your head?"
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a Super Bowl defense goes a long way. Granted, we saw that when the Broncos played Seattle, kind of ended up being a wash, but that's an outlier, right? We have an absolutely elite defense that is arguably better well coached than when Salo was here. And that's saying a lot too. I mean, hard to compare, but D'Amico has these guys absolutely locked shit tightened down to the fucking pin. And that's the most you could ask for. So yeah, I think we're Super Bowl contenders. I mean, not winning at all is considered losing, depending on how you look at it. But I'm proud of this team either way if they even make the championship game to begin with the third string quarterback to begin with. So yeah, they're Super Bowl contenders. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But now that fine line in between mistake-free football just got a lot smaller than it did with Garoppolo. So the path is tough, but yeah, I'd say yes, absolutely.
I'm almost there. I still think we're playoff contenders. I just, the NFC is weak. I get that. But, I watch a team like Philadelphia just go out and 10-1. That's really, really impressive. Jalen Hurts has taken a huge step forward. And then, you just watch Dallas absolutely dog walk Indianapolis 59-14 on Sunday Night Football. And it's just, again, like you said, the window was small enough with Jimmy. And it's like, we found out during the Kansas City game, man, can we keep up with these teams that score a lot of points? It's really hard, right? But then you got the AFC side of it, right? Can we keep up with Cincinnati Bengals team who's on fire and just beat Kansas City? We already know Kansas City is a tough matchup for us. What do we do against Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills? These roads become very difficult, and the margin for error is razor thin in all of these games. And we might get 1 or 2, but trying to get 3 or 4 in a row is going to be hard. Without an upgrade at quarterback, I think that we come up short. If I'm being honest, I think NFC Championship game is still a reasonable expectation based off of how good the defense is and how good the skill positions are. I don't know. At this point, as it stands right now, and I could be wrong, Brock Purdy could come out and look really good, and I will happily stand corrected on that. It's just really hard to see that. And David Yang says Debo's the nastiest playmaker in the game. I don't disagree. We have a lot of weapons on this team that will make Purdy's job easier, but I mean, we'll see, right? We'll see. Tampa Bay is going to be a good test. They're not an elite level defense, but they're not, the worst defense in the league either. So we'll see if he can come out and make something happen. One of the other things from this game, going into this game, there were a couple of former 49ers. I'll let you go first, Perry, and then I will kind of give my two thoughts. We had Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr. in an interview with Tyler Dunn talking about how, Tua is, a guy that can sling it, the talent here is better, this and this and that, right? And then they come out in the game and Jeff Wilson Jr. has one carry for 3 yards. Raheem Mostert, 7 carries for 30 yards. That was absolutely it. They didn't do anything in the passing game, nothing there. They watched their team go down in flames. Perry, is this a situation of talk shit, get hit? Is this a situation of fuck around, find out?
Yeah, it absolutely is, man. I mean, I'm all in on gamesmanship. Don't get me wrong. If you want to kind of talk your talk, that's fine. But if it didn't come off in the manner in which it did, in which Mostert and Jeff Wilson were essentially attacking the 49ers organization for how they handled business, which Zach and I talked about in the last show, it's like, look, like businesses have to make business decisions, no matter what the contracts, injuries, their personnel staff in terms of medical doctors trying to get them out to play. No billion-dollar organization is smaller than the few $1 million per year player. Let's be real, and you're going to knock these guys and you're just going to get hit. That's what happens. I still have all the respect in the world for Mostert and Wilson, but homies, you got to remember that who put you on the map and the platform? Mostert was a journeyman whose career was almost over until Shanahan and the Niners. Jeff Wilson Jr., God forbid, on any other team, probably wouldn't be where he is now because of Shanahan. So I'm sure they have that level of respect for them to begin with. But just to go about it in the way that's basically ragging on the 49ers for operating like a business, which it seems like they were blind to understanding as a whole, I can't say much more than that. That's why I want your 2 bits on it, especially. But it's frustrating to see. It definitely seems like type of information that probably shouldn't have even been said to come out with to begin with. I mean, Mostert and Wilson Jr. could have said was just, yeah, they were good to us. We have a great team here too. I'm excited for the opportunity, blah, blah, blah. Just kind of take the soft road out. I mean, they were essentially given the softball to kind of be respectful about it, but it was the opposite direction from both, essentially. Jeff Wilson wasn't as blatant about it compared to Mostert, but you knew what the words were behind it. And if you listen to the KNBR radio when Papa and Lunt had Mostert on the show, I mean, I kind of joked about it with Zach. I was like, when I'm kind of bullshitting, I kind of, kind of try and fight around the words I'm trying to say without, not being straightforward. And that's just how it came off to me. So it was just total BS. But yeah, hey, they got hit, man. They absolutely got hit.
Okay. Listen, you touched on it. Shanahan gave you a great opportunity, both of y'all. Mostert, you were on 8 teams, right? You were a practice squad guy. You didn't do anything. You come here, you get an opportunity. You have a good season, a really good postseason. And how do you thank the team for that? How do you go, thank you, sir, for my opportunity. You just signed me to a 3-year deal. I might have played really good, but I signed that 3-year deal in faith. Am I going to reward you for that? No. I'm going to come in like an 1880s Wild West gunman holding up the stagecoach. I'm going to rob you guys for some money. And then you know what I'm going to do? Am I going to play up to that contract? Nope. I'm going to get hurt. I'm going to get hurt and miss the better part of 2 years. Then you guys are going to not offer me a contract because I haven't been available, right? And I'm going to go to Miami. And then I'm going to be reunited with my boy, Jeff Wilson Jr., who had to fill in for me while I was injured for those 2 years and really had one great play, a cover 0 blitz catch on a halfback angle out of the backfield from Jimmy Garoppolo to win a game against the Arizona Cardinals, and some nice runs here and there in spot duty, but I was never the guy, right? Somebody always had to get hurt in front of me for me to go. They draft Christian McCaffrey, and I'm like, all right, guys, well, I guess you guys can trade me now because, I feel like I need to feed my family, and I'm just as good as Christian McCaffrey, eh? Both go to Miami. Both go to the same spot. A couple weeks before the game, they're like, hey, we got this bright idea. This guy, Ty Dunn, he wants to ask us for an interview. Let's give him an interview. Let's do it with him, right? Let's talk about our former team because we're coming up and playing them, right? This could be a cool game. We can give them all their flowers, all this stuff. Jeff Wilson kind of kept it in check. I will give you props for that. Raheem Mostert, my man, you need to have better media training than you have to come out and say that the 49ers disrespected you with their offer, to come out and say that your injuries affected their offer, to come out and say, you know what, I kind of went into business for myself, and they were mad at that fact, knowing damn well you held the team up for money and then underperformed, and you had the gall to say, yeah, I think they held that against me in negotiations. And to do all that 2 weeks before the game, fine. You want to do that? You do that. But then you got to back it up, right? You got to back it up. Yeah. Oh no, you're back to that journeyman level status. You guys didn't do anything. Raheem Mostert, you might as well have just been hurt. You might as well have just sat out the game. Jeff Wilson Jr., it was like your entire career before this season. You didn't do shit either. Fuck around, find out. You guys talked all this shit, talked all this noise, and you didn't do a damn thing. And then for you to question the journalist in question who interviewed you and say that shit was taken out of context. And you got to have your boy Debo come out and say, come on, man, you know what you said. You know what you said. And then he comes out after the game because it stuck with him. And he was like, oh, I thought they had the best talent, though. Man, y'all just better pack it in. The next time someone comes to you for an interview, if you say yes, if you have the balls to say yes, you better just be complimentary and give the standard stock cliched answers, because what you did here was shoot yourself in your own damn foot, and you deserve every bit of shit that you're getting right now because you talked a big game and you didn't do anything. Anyway,
we love it. Niners Throwback had a super chat too. That exact same thing.
Thank you, Niners Throwback, for your super chat, $5 super chat. We appreciate you very much. Debo reminded Raheem Mostert, I thought they have the best talent. I took that personally. My bad. Mike McDaniels didn't want to hug Kyle. Yeah, man, there's a lot of emotions. I mean, for Mike McDaniel, I get it. Like, it's like, yo, daddy took you to school. Daddy took you to school. You thought you were a big old college boy, but daddy took you to school. So it is what it is. I just think that, this team doesn't need any motivation. They play motivated each week. So if you're going to add layers to that, damn straight, this team is going to come out and kick ass. The Bucs are about to win now. They came back from 16-3.
I kind of have it in the background. Brady threw a touchdown pass and it got called back for holding.
Oh,
so if 3rd and goal at like the 10 in the end zone or the red zone.
One last thing, and Ian Sharp says it's better to say nothing instead of phony apologies. There's an old quote. It's better to keep your mouth shut and have everyone think you're an idiot than to open your mouth and confirm it for everybody.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Mostert did too. It's just, for, like you said, for Debo to come out after the game too and fucking talk shit about that tells you he was bad at bullshitting. He was absolutely bad at bullshitting.
They posted that shit on the locker room. I guarantee you they all talked about it. We're like, wait, that's our boy Raheem. Why is he doing us like that?
That was bulletin board material. And they sure as hell embarrassed the shit out of the Dolphins because, man, coming into that game, the Niners were, I think, 3 or 4.5 point favorites. So it's like, okay, it's going to be close. Well, they sure as hell didn't treat it that way because they absolutely got mollywopped. To give up 4 turnovers.
Yep.
But man, it's one of those kind of wins where you're like, I personally thought it was a statement win. I'm curious what you think about it as well, because they did embarrass the Dolphins in my honest opinion, even with Purdy. But to go out there and if you're another team, you're not afraid of Purdy, obviously, but you see that and you go, holy shit, they just smacked the Dolphins with a 3rd string quarterback. That defense absolutely just manhandled who a quarterback who's been playing top 10 and 2 top 5 wide receivers, even if one was banged up. You have an offensive minded head coach who's absolutely been dialing it up for his quarterback, have his shit shut down. Now you see that in the league circles. That to me, that's a statement, man. That's an absolute statement that these guys aren't here to mess around, no matter who's in the quarterback spot. And if hopefully anyone can make his job easier in terms of Purdy, it's got to be Shanahan. Because man, I was genuinely impressed that Purdy had a really nice stat line at the end of the day, and it was, you know, and you know that's kind of the thing too. I think a lot of the debate is going to happen after tonight's game. Talking about Garoppolo versus Purdy is, and I brought it up early in the chat too, is, well, Purdy threw 2 touchdowns and a pick. It's about the same stat line as Garoppolo. That's where the comparisons really come from. I think Hung said it way earlier in the chat, is how those 2 guys can be compared because they both essentially game managed, where they weren't in a position to have to come back down 3 or down 7. And now you got that moving forward, and it's like, ooh, like how is this really going to compare moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, just to follow up on what you were saying earlier, 49ers throwback, Bucks won. Looks like they scored another touchdown, and it's 17-16 now with 3 seconds left. So that looks like a wrap. I kind of like this for the 49ers going in. The Tampa Bay Bucks squeak by in an emotional game. Now they have to come on a short week. Maybe there's a little bit of an emotional letdown. We'll see. The Bucks have not been impressive by any stretch of the imagination. I definitely think, though, I agree with you. This, like, you don't need bulletin board material for this team. Teams aren't necessarily scared of Brock Purdy, but what they do need to look at, and what this team showed with this game is, and the statement really is, it doesn't matter what happens to us. We're not going to lay over and die. This is a team that will overcome adversity, that will pick themselves up. And Bosa even said it, right? Like, it's hard to concentrate when, they heard about Jimmy Garoppolo in the second quarter. That's a crushing thing for the team. They're like, shit, we lost our quarterback, whatever. But they rallied around Purdy. They made plays when they had to. The defense stepped it up. The defense did a great job. And the defense did a great job against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And next week, it's like Mike Evans. Okay, I guess, right? Chris Godwin. All right, cool. Coming off of ACL, not really what he was before. And then Miller?
Julio. I watched Julio.
Jones. Like, this is a team that can definitely, at least defensively, really make life hard for Tom Brady. And, despite it not being a Jimmy Garoppolo, Tom Brady, matchup, I'm excited that this is the game that we're going to, it's going to be a fun one for sure.
And, the Niners over under for that game coming in is 37.5. So not exactly expecting a, 3 touchdown performance from each quarterback. But again, that kind of tells the whole story too of, well, it's going to be the Niners defense versus what kind of level of player we're going to expect from Purdy, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a 17-7 type game, or even like a 13-3 type game. I'm not saying Bucks will score 3, but it's going to be a big defensive brawl essentially. And who's going to come out on top? It's, well, who can play more clean football. But Tampa Bay by no means is an intimidating force. They're kind of one of those teams at the moment where it's like, yeah, they got the big name guys, but they're not getting the big name execution that they've been all season long. Tom Brady has been playing pretty well, I'd say, for his standard. He's playing pretty well. He obviously just won him the game. But the offensive line is debatably worse than Miami's, and that's saying a lot too. So now you have Bosa probably going to be hungry. I mean, we saw the funny quote where he was talking shit to Kyle Shanahan, and Bosa said, "Don't talk shit on my name again." If that's what it takes for Bosa to get 3 sacks in the strip sack every single game, then Kyle, keep it up, man. Keep doing what you're doing. But you got a man playing hungry. You got an entire defense that's playing at an all-world level right now. And it doesn't make Tampa Bay intimidating by any means. I think the only factor is just, can the Niners and Purdy especially just stay out of his own way? And that's about it.
Yeah. And I think this is a good question from Hung Fat. How excited do you think Kyle Shanahan is to try to put to bed the Kyle's record with Jimmy, Kyle's record without Jimmy? Because it seems to me like, a lot of people have said it, and, we really haven't touched on it. And given the situation with the 49ers leading, Brock Purdy kind of threw the ball a lot for a guy just coming in. I think he had 37
30
attempts.
plus passes. Yeah.
Yeah.
30. I wouldn't have
Is this something you think
all.
Kyle, is this something you think Kyle is going to be a little bit in the back of his mind, trying to, you know, get that stigma off of him that he can only win with Jimmy Garoppolo?
If anything, you know, this is kind of the monkey on his back, right? I mean, he has won with good level quarterbacks, Jimmy Garoppolo and Matt Ryan, Matt Schaub to an extent. And then you give him every other shitty quarterback. When you are highly touted as an offensive mind, oh, it shouldn't matter who your quarterback is. You should be able to go and execute. Yeah, absolutely. I take Kyle Shanahan as a guy who's just, he's a thinker. We see it happen with his play calling. We tend to see him overthink his own play calls. He had some nice fourth down calls yesterday. I think they had one or two attempts that I liked, at least just going for it. Then you still see some play calls where it's like, all right, like what kind of shit was that? You know, we see Kyle Shanahan getting his own way. So now we have the big picture talking about, okay, well, now he doesn't have much of an option left. He's got his Mr. Irrelevant, essentially. Now he's got to pull out all the stops to make the offense execute and put his player in the best position possible. And at the end of the day, it's, yeah, you know, the players are there to be made for the quarterback, but it still falls on the head coach. You know, Kyle Shanahan's dialing up these plays. It's on you as the head coach to get your quarterback to, hey, this is the read. Hey, this is a guy you need to hit. Hey, this is a guy that's going to come open. You got to let that develop. And if the quarterback doesn't do it, even after Shanahan's insistence to make sure that's the play, well, it falls on the head coach. And now it's really going to get to a proving point where it's how much is Shanahan's quarterbacks making him versus the Shanahan making the quarterbacks. And it's a really interesting debate. But I think it just kind of got to a whole new level because now it's crunch time. Now it's, look, we got 5 games left or however many there's left. This is the playoff run we've all been waiting for. I think fans are absolutely tired of seeing elite play getting wasted, with all due respect. Elite play from top 5 level position players like Bosa, like Warner, even Jimmy Ward. I think Jimmy Ward's a top 5 safety. You see that happening and you're just getting tired of it being wasted, and it falls on Shanahan, whether we like it or not. So yeah, I definitely think that pressure and that kind of that just overall, can he get this done concept, I think it's really going to start coming out the woodwork, especially because this win finally put Shanahan over 500. And that's not that big of a deal to most, but it is a little bit telling when you're talking about most of his wins with Garoppolo and Lance versus everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think for somebody who was as highly touted as a head coaching prospect, an offensive genius, right? Somebody who has, as was mentioned earlier, by G9 Garage, who says McDaniels now knows how McVay and LaFleur feel. This is a coach with people out of his tree in the NFL right now. And so being over 500, I think, is a big deal for him. I think that Kyle is the ultimate competitor. I think Kyle loves to win. You know, sometimes people say he coaches scared or doesn't do what he wants to kind of, you know, get things done, but he play calls a certain way or whatever. But I think at the end of the day, he really likes to win. So it is a big deal. And I think that Jimmy Garoppolo thing, it's, you know, it's time. It's time to move past the Jimmy Garoppolo is the driving factor. I think that when you look at it, it really is. Yes, Jimmy is a part of, you know, Jimmy is a huge part of what's going on, but he's not the only part, right? Like the defense is more important. Why did they lose in 2020? Was it Jimmy Garoppolo going out? That was a part of it, but it was also Raheem Most hurt. It was Bosa. It was, every injury that you can imagine the team had to go through. You know, Jason Verrett, one good season was the season that nobody else was healthy, right? Jason Verrett is injured. The running backs go down every single year, right? Elijah Mitchell, ankle issues last year, minor knee issues last year, right? Plays 8 or 9 games or whatever it is. This year, it's like he sprained both MCLs, both. Like, it's just a thing of like more so than I think Jimmy Garoppolo. It's that the injuries have really hurt Shanahan. So if he can get past the whole, oh, I can only win with Jimmy Garoppolo thing, then the sky's the limit for him. And him being over 500 is a good step in that. And I think that the schedule bears out in a way that he's going to be able to win some games at the end of the season, and he'll be able to hold that 500 record. And even with a little bit of struggle from Trey Lance next year, or I guess as Colin Cowherd would have you believe, potentially Tom Brady, whoever's quarterbacking for the 49ers next year, that, I think Shanahan's going to keep that going. That being said, now that I've brought that up, I do want to ask you about who you see going forward for the 49ers next year as the quarterback. But before I do, I would love to shout out our sponsor today, MyBookie. Sports and you pick winners all the time, right? So why not get paid for them, MyBookie? I know for me right now, if I was to make a prop bet, my bet would be that the first play of the 49ers Bucks with the 49ers on offense is going to be a run to Christian McCaffrey to the left side of the offensive line. And I would lock that in a second. And you could do that because MyBookie has the biggest online selection of odds and contests for all your sports betting needs anytime, anywhere. You can bet on the NFL, NBA, MLB when it comes back, which I'm excited for. Hockey. You can aim for a low risk, high reward jackpot with the all new MyBookie Money Bag. Money Bag is a one-of-kind opportunity for crazy spins, props, futures. Sign up today using promo code HIVE and claim a deposit match of any amount up to $1,000. That's right. Any amount up to $1,000 using promo code HIVE, signing up free today. Promo code HIVE to claim your bonus. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. Now, I know you're a betting man. That being said, if you had to go on MyBookie today and say who was going to be the starting quarterback for the 2023 49ers on opening day, who would that be for you?
My heart says Trey Lance, man. My heart and my brain wants to say Trey Lance, but I think the reality of it is it's just the way Lance has been handled since he's come in. I wouldn't be surprised if a veteran option's on the table, man, at all. I mean, the reality of it is Shanahan has his quarterbacks. I'm not even going to get into the whole drafting process behind Lance because that's still a big thing on its own. But, man, Shanahan has its type. He absolutely has his type of quarterback. And, I mean, kind of got RG3 hurt, but RG3 was also injury prone too. So, I wouldn't mind Tom Brady personally. I really wouldn't mind it at all. I think he'd be a perfect character and perfect leader. If you put him in the right situation where he just needs to make the throws he needs and he gets to be behind a really good defense, I'm all for it. I mean, Aaron Rodgers sat for what, 3 to 4 years? How long was Steve Young behind Joe Montana for? And I mean, those are just very, very obsolete comparisons because they're 1 in a million. But the point stands is if Shanahan in the front FO doesn't feel like Lance is ready, the reality of it is that we have to accept that. And that's okay. If Lance needs more time, he needs more time. If it's to sit behind Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or whoever the next person coming in next season might be, I'm not saying it should be Rodgers, but just throwing the vet names out there, whoever it has to be, if it means Lance needs more time, it's going to be frustrating. It's going to suck. He'll miss another year of playing time. There were plenty of other quarterbacks who turned out to be great that also had to sit for quite a while too. So it might frustrate the most of us. I know Melissa doesn't sound like she's a Brady Rodgers fan at all, but hey, we got to trust the process of our team, man. We root for these guys for a reason, and there might be a lot of moves we don't like, but if that's what they think the best interest is, then that's the direction we got to go into.
Yeah, I'm kind of mixed opinions, right? There was something. So if you would have told me just maybe a month ago, right, who the quarterback would be, I'd be like, Trey Lance. You got to go Trey Lance, right? But a couple of things have happened since then. One was the Ian Rappaport report that the 49ers were open to bringing Jimmy G back if the circumstances were right, which is very nebulous, and it's exactly what happened this year, and it made me worry. That got blown up real quick alongside Jimmy's foot. That didn't last very long. Literally blown up. But two other things happened. One, Aaron Rodgers got hurt, and Jordan Love came in the game, and we've been dogging Jordan Love because that dude just could not get on the field, and he didn't look good, and then he came in, and he actually looked good. And it's like, wow, did he need that much time? Maybe he did. And he was a 3-year starter at Nevada. So, that kind of showed me something. And then, ironically enough, the Zach Wilson debacle really brought about something that made me think about Trey Lance in a different light. And it was something that Robert Saleh said about Mike White. He said, we don't need him to go out there and be a one-man show. He makes the easy look easy. And if I had to describe Trey Lance, I would not describe Trey Lance as a guy that makes easy look easy. He makes hard look easy, but he makes easy look hard. And we all know that on a lot of those screen plays, on a lot of those short passes, he was sailing them, he was dumping them at people's feet. And it's something that I really, really would like to see growth out of Lance for. And if it was nothing else but the 49ers telling him, hey, continue to work on your footwork, continue to get that ball out, really practice these snap throws where you got to just go, right? And you don't have time to just throw it out there. I think that there is a world where Trey Lance may need a little more time. Now, would I want to go after a Rodgers or a Brady or something like that? I don't think so. I think at this point they're a little too old. And I don't think that it's worth it, you know? But I think that if Tom Brady was available, the 49ers would probably go after him. I would love for Lance to learn on the fly. I think that would be a good thing for him, but who knows? Who knows? Again, I'm still 95% that is going to be Trey Lance, but there is that 5% of doubt that was brought up by that whole make easy look easy thing. And I think there is something to that. And so going forward, they got to figure out Trey Lance. They got to fast track his development somehow. They really need to hammer home fundamental quarterback play. And I think that's the most important thing for him to learn. You don't have to, it's a little bit like an old quarterback that we had. We don't have to mention his name, but it was a guy that wasn't a very good passer, had all the athleticism in the world, but never worked on anything but that athleticism. I'm going to lift weights. I'm going to run. I'm going to do everything except refine my passing skills. We see that with Lamar Jackson. Sorry for all you Lamar fans out there, but he has stopped progressing as a passer. He is the same passer that he has been since his MVP season. And now you're starting to see last year, he was a little dinged up, missed a couple games. This year, he has a knee injury, missing a couple games. We saw it with Michael Vick. When you rely on running and athleticism and you don't do the fundamental things, you stop growing. And when you stop growing, that's when you become a liability. And so for Trey Lance, I think the most important thing for him to be a quarterback of the future for the 49ers is to really work on those things and make easy look easy.
I think you nailed every bit of it on the head right there. It's just the reality of it is that, yeah, I'm 95% certain it'll be Lance too, but Shanahan has the guy who wants to make shit look easy, essentially. And that's the thing is, arguably, for as long as Shanahan's been here, he hasn't had a quarterback that's made things look easy at all. And Garoppolo's had his moments this year in 2019 where we saw him make the throws he needed to, but there were still quite a few of those games where it's like, oh, Jimmy. Oh, Jim, come on. Jim, what are you doing? But I think Jimmy's turnaround this year had a lot to do with Brian Griese. I think we kind of shit on Brian Griese for not having coaching experience at all, for kind of being a career, decent quarterback, nothing great by any means. But then it seemed like Jimmy really took that step up. Now, this is the part of me that also kind of wants to figure this was a contract year for Jimmy. A lot of players play really well in that final year. A lot of them do. Don't ever, for any sport, don't ever understate that meaning. So I want to kind of think of that as a factor for Jimmy also. But it seems like Griese's been very well touted. It seems like he's doing his job accordingly. And Jimmy's been executing when he needed to. So it's a good blend of both. But in any event, though, it's can these guys coach up Lance? Can they really fast track the development and really get him up to par to be able to hit not the tough throws? I think we've already seen he could do that. And consistently, we'll see. It's hard to hit a 20, 30-yard throw downfield. But when you're talking about the 5, 10, 15-yard throws that are designed to be open, can Lance hit him in stride? Can Lance hit him where he needs to be going? Can Lance fit that throw in a tight window? Or can Lance hit a guy who's standing horizontally 10 yards away from him in the chest even? And that's really the big thing that matters, that really affects how offenses succeed versus fall apart. And that's not to say it'll fall apart, but we know how Shanahan gets. We've seen him on the sidelines when Jimmy Maybe it'll be Purdy now too. Mullins, Beathard, all the quarterbacks we've seen not hit their throws. We've seen how pissed Shanahan gets. He definitely seems like a guy, like you said, Matt, who is a winner, who wants to win, who wants his guys to execute. Now you got to figure, well, this is a Super Bowl team for at least a couple more years. Does Shanahan have that patience with Lance? And does Shanahan have just his own ability to see through his development? And that's even if the development goes on the right track. If not, then okay, well, you do got to ask, well, is Jimmy G an option again? Is Brady an option? Is Rodgers an option? Are any of these guys options to make the easy look easy and make the hard at least look a bit easier? And then at the most, you got to ask for the consistency. Because if there's no consistency on the offense next season with Lance, and we get to game 9 or 10, and we're still seeing the same mistakes in an offense that is heavily favored for quarterbacks, then you got to ask, well, why didn't they bring back Jimmy? There are these other veteran options out there too. You know, now you go into week 10, 5-5 or 6-4. Do they have that patience, have that ability to just wait and see out Lance and see if it's really going to work? Because again, not too many people want to see another defense wasted, especially with your young quarterback.
Absolutely. Emiliano says Lance went 11 for 16 in preseason this year, had a good completion percentage in week 1 before the monsoon, and went 2 of 3 in week 2 before injury. Whereas all this evidence, there's a ton of things to fix. It's on tape. It's on tape. It's not in the box score. It's on tape. Just watch it. Just watch it with a critical, objective eye. And I'm not saying that Lance is. I don't think that Lance is going to be bad. I said 95 still in on Lance. I think I'm with Chris Madsen. I believe that Trey will be a good QB1. I'm saying that there has to be a little bit of room for doubt. We've seen it. This quarterback class that Trey Lance came out of has been pretty bad, if I'm being honest. The guy that they're really touting is Justin Fields, and the dude still can't throw the ball. He runs like a maniac, and I love it, but mediocre throwing the ball.
And then Trevor Lawrence, too, for example. Lawrence finally had his big breakout game where he beat the Ravens last week, and then yesterday laid a turd against the Lions with one of the worst defenses in the league, period. So you have those growing pains to go through, too. And he was touted as the generational guy, the guy closest to Andrew Luck in terms of talent. And he's in another year now where, yeah, he's making strides, but is a number 1 overall pick strides. You know,
exactly.
And then we saw Zach Wilson. We've seen what's been going on with that entirely.
Zach Wilson's going to be out of the league. I mean, he's shown up complete terrible attitude. He's given me Baker Mayfield vibes. And shout outs to our man Christian over on the Forever Faithful podcast. Like he was spot on with his assumptions of Zach Wilson. Junior Ayala, love it when you guys show up. Raiders are better. Shut up. When's the last time you guys won a playoff game? I'll wait. That's all I need to say. I'll wait. And I'm sure that if you guys beat us in week 16 or whatever it is with Brock Purdy as the quarterback, you'll come in here pounding your chest as if that's some great victory, but enjoy, fighting with the Broncos for last place in that division. Have fun with that. Ian Sharp seems to be an overrated QB draft. Definitely seems like it. So we'll see. Itchy 95 Fields, who I thought was the best in the class, but I'm all Lance now that he's ours. I think that Lance has a higher upside, if I'm being honest. So I think we're about to wrap it up. Perry, give me final thoughts on the Dolphins game and what we can carry forward going into Tampa.
Final thoughts on the game, man. I still got to stick with it. I think it was a statement win. It's going to be a little scarier with more film on Purdy now. And it's just one game. One game of film against the Dolphins defense that was they shredded our offensive line for most of the game. But in terms of that, it wasn't really anything where you're like scared of them. If anything, the Dolphins were playing up to how Purdy was, and that didn't really work out for him. So going into the Tampa Bay, man, there's a lot of momentum. It seems like Tampa Bay won. The Niners just got a really big emotional victory themselves too because of losing Jimmy. So you just got to carry that momentum, man. Just got to hope and stick that Brock Purdy, which I think is going to be the guy moving forward. I don't know how much we could put into that for now, but just moving forward, the front office, the coaching staff, the players, just got to buy in on Purdy, man. You got to show your commitment to him. You got to show that don't give him the cold shoulder like certain players were towards Trey Lance that we saw, and it was pretty apparent. You got to give Purdy the love. Just make it as easy for the kid as possible. I saw this. It was the
I saw a thing, YouTube after the game where they were talking like Shanahan was addressing the team. I thought it was a good sign that when Shanahan brought up Brock Purdy, the team was chanting his name. So that's a really good sign. I think they are going to rally behind him as much as they can.
Yeah, and that's the thing we like. And there was a play, I forget what it was. It was some kind of check down Purdy made near the end zone that he fucked up. It might have been on the Robbie Gould play, the final kick before the game ended. Kittle was coaching him up. I love seeing that kind of thing personally. I mean, Kittle just seems like the outgoing guy who is going to help out all of his teammates in general. But to see that for Brock Purdy, especially, kind of Purdy made the face like, yeah, that's what I should have done. And Kittle is coaching him up. I like seeing that stuff. And I didn't know about the YouTube thing until now. So if you're giving him that full support, you got to ride the wave, man. I mean, just let it go for Purdy. It's, all hands on deck now. There's no turning back.
Yeah. Itchy95 says, will they accept Lance when he comes back? I think so, because I think we've seen the last of Jimmy Garoppolo. I think this was pretty clear. This was another case in point as to why the 49ers went out and spent all that capital to get his replacement. It's just another injury in a very injury-riddled career for Jimmy Garoppolo. And it sucks that this is the way that he goes out. We would have loved to see him, get us deep into a playoff, go on a great playoff run, but it kind of seems like that's the way that it goes. So we're going to wrap it up, guys. But before we do, very special announcement. As many of you know, next week against Tampa Bay, a lot of us are going to be going to the game. So next weekend's preview show will be live. A bunch of us in a room all together in person. Please join us for that. It's going to get wild. We hope you can join us. It's going to be a super good time. We're going to have a ton of fun getting ready for the Buccaneers, going down to the 49ers. We all want to watch the GOAT play one time and take an L against this 49ers team before he rides off into his very lonely, very empty mansion-y sunset. So please join us next Saturday for the preview show. I can't guarantee the wrap-up show because a lot of us are going to probably imbibe too much at the game. So no promises there, but yeah, join us there. So Perry, before we go, tell the people where they can find you. I hear you are a Call of Duty god.
Yeah, 36-4, man, living it up over there. Nah, Matt, guys, thank you so much for having me and entertaining me. Last couple shows I've loved being on. It's always fun to talk Niners with my boys. We've been, doing this for a really long time together. We've just known each other for a long time already.
Oh, we lost you for a second, I think.
Oh, can you hear me?
Oh, maybe it's just me.
Okay. We've been doing it for a long time, and I can't believe I think 4 or 5 years has already flown by in terms of just Niners stuff to be in with, and it's always fun. Guys, Joey said in the chat, subscribe to me on Twitch. My username is right here. It's Anthony, bro. I'm always streaming Call of Duty, Madden, unfortunately. I'm always
Madden, unfortunately, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It's a sad part of my life there. But
yeah.
No, guys, follow me on Twitter, Twitch. It's Anthony, bro. I'm always talking Niners, video games also. Just come in, join, have a great time. And again, thank you so much for having me. It was a great show. A lot to look forward to. I know it's a ton to talk about now that we lost Garoppolo once again. But I think the vibes are still high. It's just a little bit scarier. But in any event, though, man, Niners faithful to the end no matter what. Matt, take it home.
Listen, guys, I think Perry said it all. This is a statement game for us. It was a great win. Bittersweet because we lost our quarterback, but brighter things ahead. We got a lot of games to play still. I think we can get it done. Team going to rally behind Brock Purdy. With that being said, we love having you here. It's been outstanding. I really hope you guys join us next week for the live show. It's going to be sick. I'm telling you guys, it's going to be sick. That being said, thank you as always for joining us. And until next time, go Niners.